now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to push a little further the exploration of knowledge graphs and semantic reasoning with a recipe for success. So we have a chef to present that recipe. So please welcome Peter Crocker, who's the co-founder and CEO of Oxford Semantic Technologies. Good afternoon, Peter. We cannot hear you, I'm afraid. Can you try again to speak? We see you very clearly, so I'm sure it's only a minor technical hitch, hopefully. No, we still cannot hear you. I'm looking at our tech team here, but no, there's nothing they can do. Maybe if you disconnect and reconnect very rapidly, if that's possible. Okay, we'll wait for you.
Okay, hopefully you're hearing
very
me.
good. Yes, excellent. Thank you. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. And hopefully the screen's coming up. Okay, I can see that now. Thank you. Right, so thank you for that introduction. A chef, I think there are other members of my family that are a far better chef, my children in particular. And in fact, my daughter was just showing me the recipe book that she started at the age of 3. She's now 17, and she's already a master in this space. But yes, a chef, maybe a chef of IT systems, and how we can put these ingredients together to create some of what you're about to see. That's probably more in line with my expertise. And the question we're going to be asking is not why is it so hard to get your sound to present at a session, but more why is online search so hard, and perhaps why how can we improve that, and how can we apply some of the techniques and some of the technologies that we've been hearing about today, in particular semantics and knowledge graphs, to the problem of search. But before that, let me just introduce the session in a little bit more. Graphs in general. So why are we looking at graphs? Well, Gartner have their opinion as to exactly where this space, this technology is going, and are predicting massive growth. And that's not growth just because they say so. This is growth coming from the people that they talk to, those that they interview and have conversations with, are advising in the space. And this is down to the fundamentals of just what graph technology and knowledge graphs are capable of doing. They're a fantastic way of modeling real data from the real world, such as the recipes example that we'll see in a few moments' time. And why do they do that? Well, not only do they allow you to model data, but also to do so and see that through the context of domain knowledge. So in the example we're about to give, the knowledge around food, ingredients, and recipes, and what goes into creating a fantastic meal. They allow you to ask more complex questions. So by bringing knowledge to your data, you're able to ask questions that perhaps are not there in the raw data itself, but in the combination of that raw data, the ingredients, if you like, and the recipes or the knowledge around that data. We're going to be looking at one particular application, but let's just have a quick survey of all the different places in where our company and our technology is used. And it is very, very diverse. So from the left-hand side, we have our technology being used in autonomous vehicles, in IoT type applications, in medical device support. How do you assist a clinician looking to perhaps get the very best knowledge from the medical world into their particular situation? There can be all sorts of complexity in terms of how to advise them. What better way to do so than a graph that captures much of that medical knowledge and brings it to the fingertips of the clinician who's perhaps not familiar with a particular aspect of their domain. Another area, personalized recommendations, being able to take vast amounts of knowledge and use that to inform and give you a far more personalized recommendation than simply what we see from machine learning, where your recommendations are really based on other people's preferences and what they have done. And we want to do this in a way where privacy and security are respected, are maintained. So our technology in particular can be used and applied and brought onto the devices that we carry within our pocket. So in this case, not just embedded within an autonomous vehicle, but embedded within the phones that we carry in our pockets. Other areas in which our technology is being used around configuration management. One of our customers uses our technology to look at all the possible combinations of the components, the engineered components that they create, physical components, and together they use our technology to work out the possible assemblies, the millions of possible configurations in which these individual components, these motors, these electronic control systems can be put together, can be assembled to solve different challenges. Analytics, data science, these are all areas in which data modeling the real world, so a graph, can be used. And then the final area here, in fraud detection. I happen to be sat today in one of the major banks of the world, in London's financial district. Fraud detection, doing vast amounts of data integration is what I'm surrounded by, and they're using technology such as ours to do that. And then finally, and the main content that we're going to be looking at today is around semantic search, and I'm going to be spending a lot more time on that as we go through this afternoon or this morning's session. So search in particular, why is search so hard? Why can it be hard, and why do we not always find when we interact with these search systems exactly what we're looking for? And in this particular example, if I do put my chef's hat on, we're going to be looking at ingredients, recipes, and ways of searching such a system. This seems trivial, but we're going to be using the example of looking for things like fish and wine and recipes that contain both of those. And when I use that phrase, searching for a recipe with fish and wine, that seems to us humans, to those of us that have grown up thinking about food, that seems obvious. The context of this search is, can you find me recipes with fish and wine? And all of the things that fall into that category. But if you think about this from the perspective of the machine, there is some ambiguity. These search terms are short, and the ambiguity comes from the fact that as humans, we're used to making all sorts of logical leaps, applying domain knowledge about this subject before reaching an obvious conclusion and supporting and answering the question. And we're going to see some of that played out with a real system, and then the system that we've built to counter some of that ambiguity. So in this demonstration, we're going to be looking at recipes, and in particular, we're going to be looking at ingredients. I'm going to show you two types of interface. One is live interface. We've taken this data from BBC Good Food, fantastic site, thousands of recipes. So we're going to be running some searches first on that. And so long as you know what you're looking for, you can find what you're looking for. But as soon as your search terms start getting ambiguous, we're going to dig into why it's ambiguous to the machine and how to solve that. Okay, so let's click on and have a look at this particular example. So I'm going to type in the term fish as per example, and we're scrolling through here and seeing some of the recipes that contain the word fish. And I've phrased that sentence very, very intentionally. These are recipes that contain the exact word fish. Okay, so now if we move on and we search for salmon, so salmon is a type of fish. Again, I'm seeing recipes that contain the text salmon, so the letters spelt out in salmon. And of course, those are also types of fish. Now, if we were to dig into details, I'm not suggesting we do this now, but if we were to look and compare those two lists, as a human, you would expect everything I showed on the previous screen to include, the list I showed on the previous screen of fish to include what we're seeing here as salmon. But, and you'll have to trust me on this, it doesn't. Many of these salmon recipes assume that domain knowledge, assume that human knowledge we have, and because the word salmon is spelt out here, we will not be seeing them in the other search. The machine, as it is, sees this as an ambiguous question and has no reference, no understanding of the fact that salmon is a fish. So how do we impart that knowledge to the system?
Peter, I'm sorry. I know we started a couple of minutes late, but we've really got only 3 minutes left in principle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We cannot make it more than 4, but that means we'll have no questions, and we do have some questions.
We will go through. So here what I'm showing is an alternative view to this search, where we're seeing the fact that smoked salmon is actually shown as fish. Let me just go through that. So we created an interface that allows us to go through this type of a search and perform these. And what if I just skip ahead, what we can see on the next screen is how that happens. We create this graph pattern for every recipe, and we expand out the search. So for smoked salmon, we understand that's a type of smoked processed fish, is a type of fish, and we can perform these searches not only on the immediate ingredients, but the full range of ingredients that are implied in that. And the rest of the demo goes through a little bit more detail. We'll share the slides and you'll be able to see that. So how's this happening? Well, we've created these broader type relationships. We've used something called a taxonomy, and we're running that when we interface to the search. And that's ultimately what we're doing. That's the taxonomy in this case is the process by which we're expanding our search. We can do far more than this. We can add in concepts of vegan. We can add in concepts of pescatarian, so things that only contain fish and no other meats, and so on and so on. Semantic technology, and in particular reasoning, allows us to ask far more complex questions and go beyond that point of ambiguity, go beyond that point where a text-only search is just not going to solve the problem, and step into a world where domain knowledge, in this case, the taxonomy that represents salmon as processed fish and so on, can be brought into bear. In the slides, you can see how we put all of this together. I'm not going to go into the detail of that, but central to the solution, just to point out, is our product RDF Fox that is performing these types of queries and also doing all the inference that takes our taxonomy, applies it to the recipes, and provides our interface.
Peter, I'm afraid we're really running out of time.
We're gonna stop there.
Yeah, but the presentations will be made available, and I think if you have time, but in 30 seconds, really to answer one of the several questions that we have received. But I don't want to frustrate the audience too much, and I think it's important to exchange. Can knowledge graphs and semantic reasoning enhance knowledge discovery in domains where large and complex data sets need to be integrated and analyzed in real time?
Fascinating question, and in fact, the subject of much of the discussions I've been having here at the bank over the last couple of days. The answer is yes, and we're looking at it, just to give you a sense of real time, we're looking at it in the context of trading, and it doesn't get much more real time than that. So the answer is yes.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon. Good luck with the rest of your day at the bank. And we're looking forward to sharing your slides. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.